This is the Radical Rant Podcast.
Hello everybody. A bit late tonight as we're recording just after the pay-per-view has ended for Fight for the Fallen. Certainly ran overtime quite a little bit than I was expecting. I figured they'd be having a hard at 11. Turns out 11:52 is when they decided to end, so either way, I'm going to try to go through this as quick as I can, maybe a half an hour, maybe an hour, who knows how long this is going to be. But we're going to talk about the entire Fight for the Fallen pay-per-view show. So, quick thoughts right from the very top. Okay show. I mean, took a while to get things really going. It definitely didn't have the best of starts. But all things considered, like I said with Fyter Fest, it's not going to be looked at as the best show that AEW is ever going to put together, but it's still a fun show by the end of it. All right, so we're going to kick off with the pre-show. Peter Avalon, the Librarian, against Sonny Kiss. Not going to lie, I actually was a lot more impressed with Sonny Kiss's athletic ability than I thought I would be. I figured that the character himself was very comedy based, so to see some of the athleticism on hand, it was actually a lot better than I thought. And Avalon, for seeing him in the ring for the first time, wasn't terrible either, although I will say that his offense was good, but his selling is quite suspect, especially at the end there. But just back and forth match, a lot of comedy thrown in there, and eventually Sonny Kiss gets the win with a splits leg drop off the middle rope that quite honestly did not look that threatening. So if that's a match that we're supposed to take seriously as a finish compared to all the other matches that we see tonight where everybody gets thrown everything but the kitchen sink and they kick out at like 2.9 seconds, I don't know, a splits leg drop that didn't look very threatening was not the best thing. Now after this match there was quite a number of mistakes over the entire show. This is the first major one. At some point they said they were going to go to an interview with Kip Sabian, and it ended up being Cody and Dustin. I mean, no big deal. It is what it is. Information gets thrown around the wrong way. Who knows? Don't even know if it was a live hit. Could have been a recording and they just popped in the wrong one. We don't know. But either way, that was a little bit weird, and it just ended up being a cascade of errors that were happening throughout the night. The next match was the tag match between Britt Baker and Riho against Shoko Nakajima and Bea Priestley. I have never seen either of the two of the latter tag team. Obviously, Britt Baker and Riho we've seen a couple of times now here in AEW. Shoko Nakajima and Bea Priestley I have never seen. I know Bea Priestley has been in Stardom, but I don't watch Stardom that much. Shoko Nakajima, I'd never heard of her before. If I remember correctly, did they say she was part of Sendai Girls? I can't remember. But she is a champion of at least one of the major Japanese women's promotions. I literally saw her for 2 seconds and I was already in love with her. Because she has I don't know who's been around longer, but she has Chris Wolf vibes. And I'm a big Chris Wolf mark. Not to mention that very quickly into the match, she did a little flip into a Boston Crab, which looked really cool. But then for the rest of the match, it kind of went all downhill. Britt Baker made a really interesting mistake. She went for the hot tag and then went to the wrong corner. So that was an interesting thing. That used to be stuff you used to see in the Model Divas matches back in WWE for the longest time. Also, at the same time, though, I gotta say that Shoko probably should have taken advantage of that situation. She should have noticed what was going on and then just fallen off the apron like she gotten attacked. But it didn't quite go out that way. And then later in the match, another hot tag got screwed up, or at least what I thought was going to be a hot tag. Riho was getting destroyed for a while. And then all of a sudden, she has a chance to hot tag Britt Baker back into the match, except she doesn't do that. She just drags Shoko into the corner, and it's a normal tag. After that long a beatdown, it felt like it could have used a hot tag, and it just never happened. There were another few things that didn't go so well. Shoko Nakajima hit a very slow and sloppy-looking 619. Didn't look very good. It's weird, when Shoko was facing off with Britt, it didn't look so good, but when Shoko and Riho were against each other, it looked a lot better. Maybe it's just a comfort thing, I'm not sure. Last bit in my notes here on this bit. There was a spot from Bea Priestley where I think she was trying to do a springboard double knees to Britt, and it just didn't go very well at all. I don't know if maybe she just didn't get herself positioned right, or Baker didn't react to it properly. Just the bump looked... I don't know if like it was hit and if she actually like legit hit her, or if they just weren't communicating with each other and it just failed miserably. Not sure what happened. And then everything just went completely downhill from here on. The Bleacher Report stream started really shitting itself. There were closed captions. Like, you know what happens when you watch like a TV, say in the dentist office or wherever you are, and you see like the black bars with text on there. And it was like closed captioning, except for whatever reason, it was not going away. And it was also like almost looking like sloppy code that you would see in like a hacking video game. It was all over the place, and it was very distracting for a while, which made the match very difficult to keep up with. And from then on out, like there was a few things here and there that were fun, but everything went downhill so fast in that match that by the time that Shoko finally wins with a roll-up, like it was just a sloppy match altogether. It was just really hard to get into as much as I wanted to like it. So yeah, that was a little depressing. Thankfully, the subtitles went down before the main show started. Kip Sabian's interview went for a little bit before the subtitles finally went away, but eventually it did fix itself. And thankfully it didn't come back. And the technical issues pretty much stopped at that point. So thankfully that got dealt with. So we followed up with the first show of the main card. We had our six-man tag of MJF, Shawn Spears, and Sammy Guevara up against Darby Allin, Jimmy Havoc, and Joey Janela. Right off the very beginning, they did a fantastic job of playing the story between MJF and Shawn Spears, because MJF supposedly is Cody's best friend, at least what you would get from being the Elite. And Shawn Spears, after hitting Cody with a chair at Fyter Fest, kind of created this weird villain against villain dynamic where they were giving each other all kinds of stares and middle fingers and pointing and talking shit to each other. And, you know, MJF right at the beginning of the match said he was going to, you know, show how things work and take notes, and then he just got his ass beat, and Shawn just gave him the slow clap. There was a few sick bumps in this match. Sammy Guevara took a German suplex into the turnbuckle. It looked like he legitimately like bent his neck in the lower turnbuckle. It was not that great. As we've seen since Fyter Fest, Darby Allin is super over in AEW. As soon as he got tagged in for the first time, just people blew up. You can tell that people are really liking him. I'm dead set on this guy now after watching that first match with Cody. I said that in the Fyter Fest video. I am way in on Darby Allin at this point, and hopefully he can keep doing what he's doing. But again, great heel work from Spears, you know, because it was supposed to be those two going against each other. Darby Allin not too happy with Spears for basically taking all the attention away from him, you know, after hitting Cody with the chair after their match. So some good heel work again from Spears. Did a fantastic job of playing that game. And then eventually there's another brutal spot. Guevara giving Janela a Death Valley driver on the apron, but Spears gets one of his own on Darby Allin and gets the pin. They did play a little bit of Allen's ribs in that because of the coffin drop on the apron from Fyter Fest, but it wasn't really as much as I thought I would see. But either way, Spears gets the victory. He should have been getting the victory because you need that anger going in. I'm assuming it's going to be him and Cody at All Out, I would imagine, but I'm not sure how that's going to work. I don't think that's been announced yet. We followed it up with Brandy Rhodes and Allie. I got to tell you, going into this match, I assumed it was going to be a car wreck because, I mean, I've seen Brandy wrestle before. It's not that great. And the first time I've ever seen Allie in a ring was at Fyter Fest against Leva Bates, and it was not a good match. So I didn't expect too much. And thankfully, those expectations were as low as they were because the match was okay at best, I guess. Like, the problem was that so much of the match was taken away because Brandy brought out Awesome Kong, who basically just acted as bodyguard and a distraction method. And there was a lot of extra time that was being wasted because Allie would just stare at Awesome Kong for a good 5-10 seconds before anything would happen. And that was basically the entire match. Like, there was a few moments here and there, but like in terms of spots, there was nothing that special. And I mean, it's Brandy Rhodes. You're not going to get much out of her. But eventually she does win with a spear after the umpteenth time that Awesome Kong distracts Ali. And afterwards, Awesome Kong does try to beat her up a little bit more, but Aja Kong, of all people, comes out for the save, which I thought was very surprising, and I guess something to work towards for All Out as well. That sounds like a buy-in show, but who knows? But yeah, that was a weird save. I figured if they were going to bring anybody out, it was going to be something a little more interesting, but... Because, I mean, here's the thing. Like, I know Aja Kong's a legend, but just from watching the Japanese 6-woman tag match from Double or Nothing, it was just very obvious to me that Aja's getting a lot more limited in the ring. I don't know if you can pull off a singles match with her at this point. So unless they're doing a tag match at All Out, I don't know how this is going to work. Another triple tag match. We have the Dark Order finally getting to see the Super Smash Brothers for the first time in a long time on television, because I don't watch too much wrestling outside of the main stuff you see, and I grew up watching the Smash Brothers in independent wrestling and also seeing like a lot of clips from them in Chikara and places like that. To see them back, made me super happy to see them. And they were facing Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, who are quickly becoming my favorite tag team in all of AEW, and Jack Evans and Angelico. Speaking of Luchasaurus, though, he is motherfucking over. The place erupted when he came in. And not to mention, some of their tag moves are really cool. Like, I don't know what you call it. I remember Teddy Hart used to have a move where he flipped a guy from over his back and then ended up turning it into a sit-down powerbomb almost. And it was kind of like that. And I'm just seeing that kind of stuff was just unbelievable. And again, these are guys that, like, when you think about this tag team tournament, you now have guys like the Dark Order, the Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy, the Best Friends, the Young Bucks, the Lucha Brothers, Jack Evans and Angelico, SCU, Strong Hearts, like the tag division in AEW. And I'm not saying this because I'm trying to be an AEW fan here and talking positive about them. You look at what we've seen from all these tag teams. This is a stacked division, which makes it a real shame that we now know that the Good Brothers, Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows, are re-signed to WWE, and the Revival is going to be stuck there for a while. It's a shame, but you know, it is what it is. A weird mistake during this match. Alex Marvez kind of really peels the curtain back a little bit there. You know, I think we're going to have to send for the man on this one, because he totally mentions that the Dark Order are actually Canadian and not from parts unknown. So it was either JR or Excalibur had to say, wow, that's really interesting to say that there's a parts unknown in Canada. I'm like, wow, that was good. But in the end, after like what was a really good match, and I actually think this is going to be my favorite match on the card. The Dark Order does pick up the pieces at the end after a ton of stuff and gets Jungle Boy with the fatality. So, you know, we finally get a good start, a good match, and it only took, you know, I mean, the 6-man tag was fine with MJF and Spears and all them, but this was the first real match that was like all smiles throughout, so that was really good. Adam Page and Kip Sabian came up next. This is a good match. It was. I wouldn't say anything too special, although I wouldn't say anything too bad about it. There was some good psychology in there. Adam Page was selling the knee for a good chunk of the match. You know, even little things like not hopping to get down from the apron. He actually would walk to the ramp where it was right next to the ring and use the stairs to get to the floor. Although he does do a moonsault that really screws that up. So, you know, clearly decision-making doesn't work the entire match. There was a really funny moment in the match where there's a fan just like yelling at Kip Sabian. And from what it sounded like he was just yelling at the guy being like, "You're a Brit! You're a Brit!" And I'm like, if that's what he's saying, is that all you got, man? Is that it? And then Kip Sabian just, you know, he kind of leans in and I don't know if he actually made contact with the guy, but he tried to kiss the motherfucker. And if he missed, it was millimeters from missing. Like, it wasn't by much. So that was interesting. Other than that, in terms of spots, Sabian had got a brutal powerbomb on the outside onto the ramp. That was about it. But eventually, after a series of roll-ups trying to get the cover, Adam Page eventually does pick him up, even with bad knees and all, to get the Deadeye on Kip Sabian, and does win. And unsurprisingly, in a different mask this time, because he seems to, you know, dress up as different characters all throughout his career now, Jericho comes out and beats the shit out of Adam Page and does bust him open above the eye. He was dressed up as one of the minions of the Dark Order. So I guess apparently, you know, they got to start making up more masked characters eventually, because I don't know if... I don't know if Chris Jericho can pull off Luchasaurus at this point. I don't think he's got the abs to do that anymore. But that was that. Let's see, where are we at? SoCal Uncensored against the Lucha Brothers. Right at the beginning of the match, there's a really funny spot, and this is probably my favorite thing of the entire show. So you know when he does his usual Cero Meo chanting, where he keeps doing his little funny dancing and trying to get in people's heads, and then he eventually does it where he's going to take the glove off and like tosses it to the referee almost like he's trying to make a bucket. And he would end up slapping the guy in the chest. That's usually what happens. Except this time when he throws the glove, he completely... Well, I don't know if he missed or if Aubrey Edwards, the referee, like completely whiffed and missed the catch. And everybody booed. So naturally, she just tossed the glove right back to Pentagon, and they did it one more time to make sure they got it done. So, that was pretty funny. I literally have here in my notes, chock full of way too many spots to count. So... Yeah, again, it's a Lucha Brothers match. You know there's going to be way too much stuff going on. Phoenix is, as per usual, just unbelievable in the ring. But in the end, the Lucha Brothers do end up winning it with the stomp to the package pile driver. And afterwards, Daniels comes back out. He got thrown out during the match. And for whatever reason, the Lucha Brothers just pull a ladder out from the ring and start beating the shit out of everybody with it. And then they proceed to challenge the Young Bucks to a ladder match at All Out. I guess it doesn't seem like it's going to be like a ladder match for any belts or anything. Or unless it's for the AAA tag team titles. Maybe that's what they're doing. But it sounds more like they're trying to be like, okay, this is our one last big match before we go to TV. We've lost to the Young Bucks twice now. Once in a regular tag match at Double or Nothing. And then once in a 6-man tag against them and Kenny Omega at Fyter Fest. So they're looking for some vengeance there. Second last match on the card, Kenny Omega versus Shima. Going into this match, I actually was wondering if Kenny was going to lose again because the commentators were constantly talking about his record because he hasn't won a singles match yet. Which, this is a theme that was going throughout the night. I was starting to get a little bit annoyed by because they would always talk about the record. It's like, oh... he really needs a win. He really needs to get on the winning track. And I was sitting there being like, but he's only had one match. Like, it's not like he's on like a 5-match losing streak. It's literally like Omega's 1-1. Like, what's the big fuss here? It's not that bad yet. But either way, I kept thinking as they kept mentioning the match, is Mox going to interfere and cost him the match? So I had that thought in my head. But this is a great match as well. And I mean, it's one thing that I'm starting to like about AEW is that, and this happened with Adam Page against Kip Sabian as well, I had the same idea. The idea of AEW being set up the way that it is, especially with the record system, is a great way to set things up because numerically now you have a sense of where people are, but you're also under the bubble of knowing that most people don't know who all these wrestlers are. So just because you think that Kenny Omega is the best wrestler on the planet, or at least one of them, it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to win every match. So even beyond that, it also means that he's not going to get all the offense in. So you would think with an unknown like Shima that Kenny Omega would be ruling the match. And in fact, Shima was beating the shit out of Omega most of the night. And there was a couple of nice little nods there, like the amount of meteors too that Shima hit on him. But there was a nice nod to the Double or Nothing match with Kenny's broken nose. So there was a point where I don't know if it was legit or if it was planned, but Kenny was holding his nose for a while and would repeatedly do it after several different moments in the match. But there obviously was no blood drawn, so we seemed to be a lot better off. But eventually, after again a couple of near falls, too many to count and too many to explain here, Kenny does get the win with the one wing angel and wins, thus putting him out of this terrible losing streak that he totally didn't have. The last thing that happens before our main event, Jericho comes out to have his little open mic session. I actually thought we were going to get something different in terms of a surprise, but it was just a usual heel promo. He's talking enough crap about Adam Page and the city of Jacksonville, or as he called them, Jerksonville or Jackoffville as he kept going. But eventually Adam Page just came out. They had an all-out brawl. Few referees come in, some of the talent come in, and they just break it up. It's pretty standard stuff. Nothing too big a note here. So last but not least, we get to the main event, and we had the Young Bucks versus Cody and Dustin Rhodes. This was a very interesting match because obviously when the Young Bucks usually face tag teams, they face guys that are around their style. They play faster tag teams where you can do a lot more high-risk moves, you can do a lot more crazy high spots, but in this case, it was a very cerebral match. There was a lot of deliberate strikes, a lot of submission holds, especially Matt Jackson was getting his arm, taken care of a lot during this match. There were several points where they tried to make it seem like there was a lot more animosity going on than there was. There was a few spit takes being taken. There were some punches being thrown that shouldn't have been there. They did play a little bit of a spot there with Cody's head after his staples had been removed apparently a week before, and did a double super kick to the back of his head, and nothing really came out of it. That was what made the match a little bit weird. The match was still good, but by the time the match was over and they're like reverting to being all friends again, you're sitting there being like, but you literally just spat at each other, and even to the point that the Young Bucks took a shot at the massive, sure, it was heel, but a gash in Cody's head. The way that the match was being done, you're sitting there being like, are these guys really friends at this point? Because this doesn't look like friendly competition anymore. But either way, the only thing that I noticed in the match that kind of drew me a little crazy, there was a point in the match where Dustin had Matt in the ropes, and he was, doing the usual thing where he's holding him there, and he's holding him there, and he's going after the arm, and the ref's counting. And at 4, normally they let go, except he didn't let go. And not only that, but he kept punching the guy. And that went for another 3-4 seconds. I'm thinking, man, the count could have gone to 7. What's the ref fucking doing here? So that was just one of those little things that I was a little bit annoyed by. But in the end, after a long round of both Dustin getting his ass kicked for a while and then Matt Jackson getting his ass kicked for a while, the Young Bucks do eventually come out with the win, which means they are now 3-0, which, if people were wondering if there's going to be some favoritism going on, I mean, if there is, it's going the Young Bucks' way right now, because Cody has a win, a loss now, and a draw, and Kenny only has 2 wins and a loss, and that one loss was a big one because it put him out of the title picture. Adam Page, obviously, is undefeated as well, but I think that's going to change when we get to All Out, because quite frankly, if Jericho's not the first champion, then that's going to be a little worrying, because let's be honest here. Adam Page is not the name you want as your first champion. And I'm not saying this is a guy who doesn't want Adam Page to be a champion, but if you want to put your name down on this company and really show people that you mean business, a name that a lot of people have never heard of is not going to help. Kenny Omega can work because it is a name that, even though he is usually on promotions that people don't know of, that doesn't necessarily mean that his name hasn't translated, because it has. It is translated far and wide. You could also do a Cody Rhodes, obviously, because people know that name. Jon Moxley makes sense because it's Dean Ambrose. But of course, Chris Jericho is the biggest name they have right now. And if you want to get people going, especially if you're going to have your company on TNT, a place where everybody knows Chris Jericho because they used to see him on WCW television for so long, it makes sense that first night of television, he's your champion going in, and that's where I think it's going to go. So I guess because we have a little bit of time here, it's not even 30 minutes yet, so I'll probably end it off with this. Let's talk about what All Out potentially is going to be. It's going to be August 31st, and this will be interesting. It's another show in Chicago, which means the CM Punk rumors are going to keep flying around. But the card that we know so far for sure, we have 4 matches guaranteed. I think Cody and Shawn Spears will be one for sure. That hasn't been announced yet, though. But these are the matches we have so far. We have the Best Friends versus the Dark Order, the winner getting a bye in the Tag Team Championship Tournament that will start on television. I fully believe the Dark Order will get this. It makes perfect sense to have the heel tag team getting a bye, to have that extra threat coming in. In fact, I would be surprised if the Best Friends lose this match and then lose their first round, depending on who their opponent is. You never know. But yeah, that's where I think that's going to go. So now that I'm looking at the card here, it is for the AAA Tag Team Championship, that ladder match between the Lucha Brothers, who are the current champions, and the Young Bucks. I would imagine the Lucha Brothers would win this. I don't know if I can see the AAA Tag Team Championship changing hands on a show that's not from AAA, so I would not suspect that to go that way. The The real wild card, because, well, I mean, there's the AEW World Championship. Like I said, Jericho should be winning that match, so I'm going to skip over that. The real interesting one is going to be Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley, because this is a match where I think both could benefit. It depends on which way you want to go with things. If you want Omega to be the next challenger for Jericho, then you have him win this match. But part of me wants to see a Kenny Omega redemption story where every time he gets close, he seems to falter because he's lost himself. He took so much time away, and now he's getting busy with other things, and his mind is not clear anymore. He doesn't have that path that he used to when he was trying to become, that ultimate, the leader of the Bullet Club that could actually be someone you could look at when AJ left, and when Finn Balor, I guess at that point, Prince Devitt had already left, and all this turmoil was going on. And that's when he picked up the pieces, became the first foreigner to ever win the G1, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, or the first one in a long fucking time. Becoming the guy who finally took Okada to task in 3 of the best matches you'll ever see. And then all of a sudden, here in this new promotion, maybe he's overconfident and he's not going into these matches taking things as seriously as he should have. It's a very interesting redemption story. So, by that logic, I would prefer, and I actually do think that Jon Moxley will win this match. That's how I look at it, because I think if you're going to have a challenger for Jericho, it shouldn't be Kenny right away. I think Kenny is the kind of thing that you want to save for 6 months. I figure Kenny Omega should be your second champion after Jericho, but don't do it right away. It should be like a 6-month period once TV starts. I don't know if maybe you wait all the way to Double or Nothing the next one, because I think that's one of their annual shows, like what a SummerSlam would be for WWE. I think they did say that Double or Nothing is intended to be a consistent show. So that's that. In terms of predictions, Britt Baker and Bea Priestley could be one. Awesome Kong and Aja Kong could also be one. But, other than that, it's going to be a couple little things that Being the Elite will pop up with, and I think that this show is going to be, if it's not better than Double or Nothing, it's going to be right up to par. I think with the way they're setting this up, this is their go-home show before television. I think they're gonna go at this with everything they've got, and I would fully expect this to be... I'm actually convinced that they'll try to go out of their way to make sure that this is the best show they put on before television, and that includes beating Double or Nothing. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But like I said with Fight for the Fallen, guys, it was fine. If you want me to rate the show so far, Double or Nothing is obviously the clear number 1. I would put Fyter Fest above Fight for the Fallen only because there were a couple really fun matches, whereas at Fight for the Fallen I could maybe count 2. So with that being said, we just look forward to All Out in August, and then television starts in October. As far as I know, there's no smaller events that they're going to do since in between this, because Fyter Fest, as far as I knew, Fight for the Fallen was supposed to be their second show, and Fyter Fest just kind of popped up. So unless they get some random little side project again, but I doubt it at this point because I think they'll want to be preparing for TV, we're going to have one more show then, and we'll be off to the races. So all things considered, as we enter one more show to go before television, they're doing pretty good. Now, there's still a lot of issues to work out with. But again, this is a company that is, completely fresh to this. And there's a reason why I think a lot of people are kind of getting very behind AEW and being a lot more forgiving. And this is what drives me nuts. And people are like, man, you're taking it really easy on them. And to that statement, this is what I have to say. So the complaint that always gets made is that, well, you guys like to make fun of WWE all the time. Why are you standing so far behind AEW and just being very nice to them? And the reason for that, quite honestly, is because AEW's had 3 shows. WWE has been going for 30, 40, 50 years. Vince has been doing this since, the 80s? And they have been on top and in various stages for more than 2-3 decades. And the fact that they can't put a show together of good quality anymore is mystifying because, as a lot of us have said before, and I'll be saying this at my wrestling panel that I'll be doing at Con Bravo very soon, WWE should be running away with wrestling fans right now. Nobody should be wanting to go to AEW. In fact, AEW should have never happened in the first place. But because there is such an opening left from WWE's pure incompetence and failure to recognize that they are not putting out a good product, or are just blind to the fact that the fans don't like what they're putting out, but they don't care. The reason that I stand behind AEW and let them get away with these mistakes right now is because this is their first kick at the can. WWE has been going for more than 30 years. I have been a fan of WWE since, oh my god, the first one I ever watched was WrestleMania 9. And we're at what, like 35, I think, almost? So I've almost been a fan of WWE for, well, I mean, I'm 31 now. I think the first time I watched wrestling was like 5 or 6. So I've been a fan of wrestling, specifically WWE, for almost 25 years. On and off, but I've been aware of them for 25 years. I expect them that after 25 years of experience, they know what the fuck they're doing, except they don't. AEW, on the other hand, doesn't know what the fuck they're doing because they don't know what they're doing yet because they haven't done it. Give them time, and they're going to know how to do it. They got guys who know how to fucking wrestle. We know that much. In terms of production issues, in terms of their booking decisions, in terms of characters, because I mean the librarians are fucking stupid. I mean they're throwing shit at the wall with that match with a few things like the librarians. The Dark Order is a very strange gimmick to be debuting on television. There's stuff like that you kind of question, but this is all baby steps. These are their first steps as a major wrestling company, and a lot of the people that are working in this company are fresh to the idea. I think everybody looks at it the same way they look at, say, like a Herb Abrams or, you know, all the various federations after WCW folded that tried to take up the helm. And let me just get this straight. This isn't going to be like that. I think it has the potential to go on for a long time because the one thing that they do have is they have the cool factor. And the cool factor will get them away with a lot of mistakes. This isn't Impact Wrestling when Dixie Carter really started to become like an on-screen character. This isn't when Hogan and Bischoff came over. No, this is a company that looks like they're intending to carve out their own niche and not become WWE. They want to be the cool WWE. Whereas WWE apparently doesn't know who they want to be anymore because I'm not sure what audience they're catering to. Considering I don't think kids would like what they're doing and I don't even think grown men would like what they're doing. I'm not sure what they're after. But that's what it is. I'm okay with them making mistakes because they have time to make the mistakes. Now, if this is a year later and they're still doing stupid stuff, then, you know, we can have that conversation. But I'm honestly not going to give them any real crap for major mistakes. Like, there is stuff here and there, like I said, with the refs not doing their job properly with some counts or the weird decisions they were making with certain things and things just being sloppy together. You can let them get away with that for a while. And as far as I'm concerned, I'll let them get away with it till the end of this year. By the time that we get to January and February, that's when I'll be like, all right, guys, like you've had some time to iron out the kinks. Let's start getting this shit going, all right? And if it is like that, you know, then I'll start talking about it then. But if it gets better and better like I think it should, then there's nothing to worry about. So that's it, guys. Fight for the Fallen was an okay show at best. Definitely the worst one that they've had so far, but by no means an actual bad show. So, that being said, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed what you got. Share it with all your wrestling fans. And we'll see you Wednesday for the next podcast. But I guess I will see you guys at the end of August when we have All Out and we see how television is going to shape out. So, if you guys are, well, I'm not posting this. And I just realized, I'm like, wait, why would I say if you're seeing this tonight? It's like, no, I am not staying up and editing this at 12:30. I'm going to fucking sleep. So whenever you guys hear this, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.